All right. Everybody ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Bezat Hashem. This year we're going to speak about, in the past shiurim, since we started giving classes and learning with each other, we've been talking a lot about the Neshamah. So this year I decided, after talking so much about the Neshamah and all different types of from Kabbalah, Chassidus, and from psychology, everything, I decided let's talk about what the Neshamah is in the first place. What is the Neshamah? How many Neshamas are there? What is a Neshamah? Do I have a Neshamah? Do you have a Neshamah? What is a Neshamah? So like this. Rabbi Chaim Vital, the main student of the Arizal, writes in two main places. It's all over the Svarim, but he brings down like this. In Shari Kedusha, which Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote, which the Arizal gave Rabbi Chaim Vital the permission to write his Torah, only Rabbi Chaim Vital, because he said only Rabbi Chaim Vital understood his Torah to the length to be able to write it down. He writes in Shari Kedusha, Chelek Aleph, Shar Aleph and Beis, and in Eitz HaChaim, the other sefer, the famous Eitz HaChaim, where he talks a lot about the Chet of Adam Rishon and the Ishtalshalos of all the worlds. Shar Nun Perek Beis, he writes a klal, that just in this klal we could probably give a couple of shiurim, but that's not what we're going to talk about. But he says that to every Jew, no matter if he's holy, not holy, a person who's born a Jew automatically has two neshamot. He has two souls. And he brings a raya from a pasuk in Yeshayahu. A pasuk in Yeshayahu in Perek Nun Zayin. Pasuk Tazayin. It says over there, Uneshama is ani asiti. The Rabbi Shalom says, the neshama is that I created. The Arizal himself wrote a sefer before he was nifter, which is called Yalka Torah, which is on the parshas of the Torah, where he explains the parshas of the Torah in a very, very kabbalistic fashion, very, very difficult and deep. Over there, the Arizal brings down the same thing, which Rabbi Chaim Vital in the other two places goes in depth. And the Arizal says, also brings this raya, that the raya that we know that there's two neshamas in a yid is because the pasuk says in Yeshayahu, what? It says, Uneshamais ani asisi. Neshamais is rabim, two. I could ask a question, what do you mean? Neshamas maybe is going on all Am Yisrael, not that each Jew has two neshamas. So what do you mean? What's Rabbi Chaim Vital and Arizal bringing a raya from the pasuk Neshamas ani asisi? Maybe the pshat is like this, that the pasuk talking about Hashem said I made neshamas. We know the 600,000 neshamas, and that's what Rabbi Hashem is talking about. The pshat is I looked in the pasuk, the Torah says like this. Because the beginning of the pasuk says is talking about the Rebbe is talking on each single Jew, and the end of the pasuk is a hemshich, is a continuation of the beginning of the pasuk. So if the beginning of the pasuk is talking about a specific person, so we know the second part of the pasuk is also like it says ruach, it doesn't say ruchos. It says ruach, and then it says over here also neshamas and asisi, that what on this one person. So the raya is that you know that the whole pasuk is talking about one person, and it says neshamot. Neshamot are two neshamas, like this. What's interesting is, this is the Kabbalistic way of looking at how many neshamas there are to a Jew. It's a big machlokes, because the Rambam seems to learn, many people learn the Rambam like this. The Rambam says that Jews and non-Jews are no difference in the neshama. The only difference between a Jew and a non-Jew is that the Yid has Torah, Mamela Torah sharpens him and makes him love Hashem. So what's the nafkamina? The nafkamina between the Mekubalim and the Rambam is, according to the Mekubalim, a person has love for Hashem. It's in his nature that he loves Hashem because he has the neshama to love Hashem. According to the Rambam, the way the Rambam always took the rational approach, even though we spoke about it, that it's not so simple. The Rambam knew of Kabbalah, obviously, but we're not going to get into it. It's a whole different conversation. The point is, the Rambam usually does take the rational approach, and he says that there is no difference. Memela, a Jew has to work on coming to love Hashem because there's no difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. But the Torah is what gives the Jew, right? But that's why also there's no difference between a Jew and a non-Jew in Olam Haba, meaning there's a difference only because of the Torah, but because of the Neshama, there's no difference in Memela. A non-Jew that keeps 7 mitzvahs of Bnei Noach, he also goes into Olam Haba. According to the Mekubalim, we also know why there's Olam Haba. They don't have this Neshama Kadosh, according to the Mekubalim, the second Neshama. How do they get into Olam Haba? So that we will discuss in more than a few moments, but in the shiur. So like this. So we said there's two Neshamas according to Mekubalim. The Rav Nachman talks about this always. The Baal Hatanya talks about it. Arizal, Baal Shem Tov, all this form in Kabbalah and Chassidus learn that there is two neshamas. Like this. What is one of the neshamas? Neshama. One of the neshamas is when we say Neshamah over here, we don't mean Neshamah. Because we always say that Neshamah is really in the Nefesh of a person, the soul. The soul is the Nefesh. Neshamah is a chelik of the Nefesh. It's the third to highest. I mean over here Neshamah, I mean the Nefesh, the soul. There's two souls. One of the souls comes from the Klippa. It comes from the dark side. We will explain what the Klippa is, what it means exactly. It doesn't mean some scary monster that we saw in a movie when we were 10 years old. That still freaks us out today, unfortunately. The point is, this Nefesh and the Klippa is something else. What does it mean? It means that you don't feel any kedusha. This neshama, this nefesh, this soul doesn't feel any kedusha or any aura of Hashem in it. It's completely cut off from the aura, from elikus. That's why it's called klipa. We know what's a klipa. Oh wait, it's fine. What's the klipa? Klipa is klipa, right? In Hebrew, what's a klipa? Klipa is the peel. It's the peel of the fruit. What is it? It hides the fruit. The klipa hides the aura of Hashem. Of course, there's aura in everything. And of course, there's godliness in everything in the klipa, because if there was no godliness, it wouldn't exist. It means that in this soul, it's completely covered by this klipa, the darkness, and what remains is pure darkness and no light. That's one of the nefashis. Now, this nefesh is called Nefesh of Bahamas. It's called the animal soul. In Kabbalah, the first soul that a human being has is called the Nefesh of Bahamas, the animal soul. And this animal soul has zero elikus in it that we can see, meaning it's completely isolated. It's completely dark. All the light is hidden, concealed. Klipa, peel, fruit is hidden. The second neshama, which nefesh, when I say neshama again, I mean just the nefesh, the soul, and everything together, is called the nefesh elikus. Now, nefesh elikus is a piece of God Himself, that Hashem gave us a piece of Him, and that is only a Yid has. Now, this year I'm only be able to speak about the first nefesh, which is the Bahamas, which is in the Klipa, because there's not going to be enough time. Bezat Hashem, I'm going to do kind of like a series over here. Next year we'll explain the second neshama, the nefesh. But one question that I will raise now is, let me ask you a question. So God gave a piece of Him into every single person. Can God be cut up? Can you cut God up and take pieces? So this question of Ashlag asks, and this is one of the questions that bothered me for a half a year straight. And finally I found in the most random kabbalistic svarim this question, and there's really no answer, because the answer, we're saying that God is infinite, and you could cut something in infinite, but it stays infinite. That's a paradox. So this is just another one of the paradoxes that really doesn't have an answer, but the fact is, it's a fact. Maybe. Like many other things.
Say something?
Sure.
It's sort of what I understood it like it's more like a candle of a light, and even though it doesn't distract you, that we all get the light from.
But at the end of the day, the two, of course. But the problem is, it doesn't answer the question, because the two lights end up being two separate things.
No, I'm talking about how a piece of Kodesh Baruch each person.
I'm not asking how HaKadosh Baruch Hu could give Himself to somebody. The question is much deeper than that. The question is, the definition of something infinite means infinite. It's impossible to take from something and give it to something, and then it becomes not part of you. Am I God? Are you God? No, but you have godliness in you. How's that possible? That's the question that the Mukabalim are asking. And there's no answer to that.
I could give maybe a parallel that might be able to feel a bit. But we can't really understand infinite because we are finite minds.
Exactly.
But basically, you're in a room. The room is well heated. Everybody in the room feels heat. Inside them, around them, it's there. You don't cut the heat up. It's there. It's inside you. It's around you. You're touched by it. It affects you without it being cut up. You have some of that heat in you.
No, but that's not the lashon of Mukabalim. That's the problem. The lashon of Mukabalim is according. That depends. You're saying like Chaim Vital. Chaim Vital, Nefesh Chaim says like what he's saying. It doesn't mean that I have a piece of God mamish in me. It means it's surrounding me. I feel it.
It's also inside.
It's inside,
without
but
being cut.
According to the Rabbi Chaim Vital and Arizal and Hatanya say beferish that it's chelik l'kai mimal mamish, and that's the problem. This question, there was a big Mekobel in the 1600s from Amsterdam. His name was Rabbi Menashe. In Neshamah Sa'adam, he talks about this question. Rav Ashlag speaks about it, and they all say that it's impossible to understand. It's impossible to understand because something that's finite cannot understand something that's infinite, because we're in the realm of the tochnit, of the program. The God is outside the program. He created the program. So that next week we'll speak more in length about what that is, but right now we're going to speak more. But the point is, I'm bringing over here that according to Kabbalah, according to Chassidus, there's two nefashis in a yid. One nefesh is completely dark, and one of it is completely good. And that is called, one is called the animal soul, and one is called the godly soul. And that's the pshat in the pasuk of Neshamah and Asisi, which is a double, where it says Neshamah, Rabbi Hashem gave each Jew 2 Neshamahs. Now, what's interesting is, according to what the Mukbalim say, what seems is usually you hear, when you grow up, you hear, what's Yetzirah and Yetzirah? Yetzirah is that what? You do good things, and Yetzirah is bad things, and Yetzirah is good things, right? When I go and I look at something I'm not supposed to, oh, the Yetzirah got me. And when I look in Torah, and I keep my eyes away from things I'm not from Dvar Masur much, I'm not allowed to look at, that's called the Yetzirah, what? Yetzirah Tov. According to the Mukbalim, it's much deeper than that. It's not that I do this or do that. It's a feature that's in me. It's a tchuna. Tchuna in Hebrew means a feature. What does it mean, a feature? Tchunat nafshit. What does that mean? It means that inside the neshama is built the what? Is built good midot and bad midot. Meaning the animal soul is the Yetzirah. It's not that there's a soul and there's a separate thing, the Yetzirah. The soul itself is the root to the bad, which is the Yetzirah. The good comes from which soul? The Nefesh of Bahamas. So when a person is really having this inner turmoil and inner struggle between, should he give in to Yetzirah, Yetzirah, he's not just giving in, should I be noik, should I go with this or go with that? He's actually by defining his inner self. He's defining himself. Who is he? Am I somebody who goes after his Nefesh Bahamas? Am I my Nefesh Bahamas or am I Nefesh Elikus? Because a person cannot be going after both at the same time, because that would be a stira. If you're going after your Nefesh Elikus, then you're not going after your Nefesh Bahamas. If you're going after your Nefesh Bahamas, you're not going after your Nefesh Elikus. What's the raya? The raya is, we know in the Torah everything right. It says right, that Yaakov is high, Esav is low. We know that obviously it doesn't just mean literally the nations. It means inside of us. We all have a Yaakov, we all have an Esav inside of us. The Torah is always to darshan in paradis, right? Pashut Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Soid. In Kabbalah, they learn, and Chassidus, which is even higher than Soid, we said, in the paradis, we said that what? That this thing of what? Of Yaakov and Esav is an inner turmoil inside ourselves. Do we go after our Yaakov, which is Nefesh Elikus, or do we go after the Esav Chas v'Shalom, which is what the Nefesh Bahamas? So be'etzim, we're not really, it's not we're going after the Yetzirah, we're deciding after we go, we're deciding who are we? Who's taking control over here inside of me? Which Neshamah? Because it's not that we have one Nefesh and then what? After that, there Hashem placed also Agav, 2 Malachim. Everybody thinks it's 2 Malachim. The Yetzirah and Yetzirah themselves are these 2 Neshamas, these 2 Nefashas. That's the Chiddush of Kabbalah. The Maiso, why am I speaking about the Klippa first, not the Neshamah Kedosha? First of all, one thing is because I thought Achar Nachan Chaviv. We know that Rashi always says in Chumash, it says that Rachel, it says he mentions Rachel last, Yaakov. So why Rachel last? Because he always saved the best for the last. So we'll save the best, but Nefesh goes for the last. But the real reason is because the Maiso, the Zohar writes, the Zohar and the Gemaras and the Midrashim all write that Yetzirah a person's born with. That's why it says Tachas Roivatz Chatos. What does that mean? That means Chatas Roivitz, the Yetzirah right away, right when the person's born, he's already crouching, he's already like an ant, he's ready to jump on the person. When does the Nefesh Elikus come into a person? Zok Tezar Kodesh, when a person's 13 years old, and when a girl is 12 years old. That's why. What's the hoini in the bar mitzvah? Why does a person have a chiv not to do mitzvahs? Because now came in the Nefesh of Elikus. How could I do mitzvahs? I only have a Nefesh Bahamas. Meaning, I can't, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not going to give me, it's not going to be, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't come with something that's impossible to do. If I don't have a Nefesh Elikus, then he's not going to be able to. Why he did it this way? That's for a different situation. Why HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Why didn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu create somebody at 30 years old already? Why does he have to create a baby? He has no idea about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything is to teach something that may be a different shiur. But the point is, in this shiur, we're seeing, I'm going to speak about Nefesh Klippa because that really is the first neshama that goes into a person. The Klippa goes right away, and the Nefesh Elikus, the Nefesh Bahamas, the animal soul, which comes in the Klippa, and the Nefesh Elikus comes later on when he's 13 years old. That's what the Zohar says. The Maiso, like this. So what is this neshama? What is this Nefesh of Bahamas? This Nefesh of Bahamas really is 2 things, right? In Zohar, it's always called 2 things. I want to just explain these 2 things. People don't even know why it's called these things. Why is it called a Klippa? So we just said, because it hides the Or of Hashem. People think that Klippa is something. Klippa is not. The Klippa is a lack of. Klippa is a lack of Or. Why is it called Sitra Achara? Everybody says the Samach Mem Sitra Achara. Why is it called Sitra Achara? Sitra Achara means the other side. He comes from the other side, meaning from the other side, the left side. That's why it's called Sitra Achara. What does that mean? Because the Nefesh Bahamas is coming from the other side. It's not coming from the side of Elikus. Lamaiso, what is the klipa? Just to be masbered again. So we said the klipa is something. It's not something. It means there's a lack of or in here. So it's a lack of. Why is there a lacking? What's the problem? Why isn't there any or of Hashem shefa coming in? So we one time said, we spoke about this by I don't know if it was here. I gave a different shiur on Chanukah. I spoke about it. Could be we're going to hear also. Rav Ashlag says like this. Rav Ashlag learns. He says not everybody agrees, but the Pashut shot is like this. Lamaisa, why is there bad in this world? Right? How could there be bad? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. So the answer is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could do something bad? No. So Rav Ashlag says, not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing something bad. He's just withholding the good. That's what a klipa is. Mm-hmm. Withholding his light, memelo's darkness, memelo, bad comes. So it's effect, but it's not that Hashem sends a wild monster that starts grabbing your tefillot. What happens? What does it mean the klipa grabs onto your tefillot? That means there's no or, there's no shef in the tefillah. What is the the cause of a person chasing out the or? One root, one problem, which everybody's born with, and that's what we have to do our whole life, which Rav Nachman says is the purpose of the world. What? Ego. Our ego is what chases out the light. Why? So I explained once because what's the light of Hashem? Light of Hashem, it doesn't mean that Hashem's light. We keep on saying it's just that it's not defining God. We never know. We cannot. That's way beyond. We can't even discuss that. Even the or we can't discuss, but we say or because it's the most pure thing. What's the or? The or is shefa, wants to give. So how could let me ask you a question. If two things that won't connect, right? Two magnets. If you put it on the other side, they don't connect. The opposite. There's friction. If a light wants to give and the kli wants to take, then the or can't come in because the person's being an egotistic maniac and the or wants to give. So what Rav Ashlag says, the whole job of a Jew in this world is, and everything is branched just from this, but this is the top, is to what? To defeat your ego, to mivat yourself to Rabbanan Shalom. How? To bring down the aura of Hashem to this world in order to be mashpia to others. Not to keep it for your own self. Now, what does Rav Nachman say the point of this world is? To be nichla in your shirish. What does it mean nichla in your shirish? This is what it means. It means to mevatel your ego and go back and bring yourself back to your root, which is God. How do you mevatel yourself to God? By having none of your own will. I want nothing, Hashem. I want what you want. That's how you create the right kli for the or to come in. Because you also want to give. You want to give back to Hashem. You want to give to others to help them get close to Hashem. That is the klipa. And that is, by the way, what it means that there's a klipa. And the klipa means it's blocking the or, meaning, what does it mean there's no or? It means there's or, but the kli can't handle the or because the kli is not fit. We gave a case. A person wants to pour water into a glass. If the glass is full already of water, you can't pour any more water in. You have to spill it out. You have to spill out all your stupidity, all your egoness, all your pity, all your pity, all your stupidities. Everybody, all of us, me. I don't know about you. Me, my ego, everything. And the more you do it, the more you're able to put in godliness and bring in Hashem is mashpia. Why is that? Because one of the biggest mukubalim writes something amazing. He says like this. He says, science says, right? What does science say? That everything physical is constantly, right? Constantly in movement. Constantly in movement. He says the same thing with Ruchnius. Ruchnius is constantly in movement, meaning Hashem, and Rav Kook also says this. I'm sorry, Rav Kook brings this down in his sefer, Rav Kook Zatzal, that the Ruchnius of Hashem is always coming down. It's always. The question is if we can accept it. It's not a lacking God forbid in God. Hashem is constantly, just like He's moving the world and everything is rotating every second. We know that everything is a chain reaction in the spiritual world. So if the Ruchnius world is always moving, so too in the spiritual world. So if the spiritual world is constantly moving, what's the problem? The problem is with me. The problem is I have an ego. Where's the ego? What is the ego? That's the animal soul. Why is that the animal soul? What does an animal want to do always? Now we're fitting it into animal soul. It wasn't Stam giving a why. An animal, what does he want? He wants just to eat. He wants himself. That's the animal soul. The animal soul is my own private needs. What does an animal look for always? His own private needs. Nefesh Alikus, the second Neshamah that we're going to speak on next week. No. That is because there's a godliness in me. So the godliness in me wakes me up to go back to my source, which is the complete opposite of ego. That's complete opposite of what an animal is. It's to be mashpia. Why is it to be mashpia? Because what's God? God just gives. So if I have a part of God that's in me, I also want to just give. So that is the struggle. The struggle between the Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov is what? That the Nefesh Bahamis so what's the struggle here? So that is the struggle. That's where the Bechira comes in. Do I pick and choose my Neshamah Likus, and that defines me? And what's the Neshamah Likus? To be mashpi in others. And maybe I get the or and simcha and everything. Or, no, I decide that I want for my own, my own pleasure. That's the animal soul. Eat, and that's it, Nothing else.
Also Torah and stuff.
Of course.
Psychiatrist understands.
Now, like this. Lamaisel, we have to explain, though, something very, very, very important. This animal soul, where is it found? So the Baal Hatanya and the Rav Nachman and the Rabbi Chaim Vital speaks about this with the Shar Kedusha and Eitz Chaim. The Nefesh Bahamis is found inside the blood of a person, the blood of the heart. Why in the blood of the heart? Why not the arm? Why not the head? The answer is like this. Even though it sounds very negative, the Nefesh Bahamis, and it is kind of a negative thing because it's the klipa, it's still something that's ruchni. It's ruchnius. It's not something that's gashmius that you could feel. It's something that's ruchnius. Ruchnius we can't. It's spirituality. It comes from the wrong, bad side, but it's spirituality. How could spirituality go into a body that's a physicality, right? The body's physical. The answer is, there's one thing that's in the body of a human that it is the closest thing to spirituality. That is the blood of a person. Why? Why the blood? The blood of the person has a heat. Blood heats a person. What's heat? Heat is something you can't see, you only feel it. Just like Ruchnius. The Nefesh Bahamis has to go into the dam of the heart. There he could connect into something that's similar to him, that has a kesher with him. And then it goes down to the lowest madrega and brings it into the physical madrega, into the physical. And what does the heart do? It pumps blood throughout the body. So what does this Nefesh Bahamis do in reality? What is it? Not just that what? It's this question, should I go for the bad or good? It's what gives the body life. In Mukubalim call it the Nefesh Chiyunit. What does that mean? Life. It's the notion of Chiyut. Why? Because if you didn't have this Nefesh Bahamis, you would just be a piece of dough. Your body would be nothing. Nefesh Bahamis comes in, dresses up into the blood, because the blood is something that's ruchnius of the heat of it. And then once the blood, the dam has it, the dam can bring it down to the next level, which is the physical, and then it sends it around the whole goof. That is where the Nefesh Bahamis is taking place, in the blood of a person. That's why Rav Nachman always says that a person who wants to beat out the Yetzer Hara, he has to what? He has to put down the blood on the left side of the heart. Because he says over there, the left side of the heart is where the Yetzer Hara is. That's the Nefesh Bahamis, the Yetzer Hara. Nachman talks about it, and that's what Nachman always says in Terevov, the famous Rav Nachman says, how does a person do tshuva? That if a person makes fun of him or embarrasses him, he lets the blood run to his face. And he doesn't answer him. Why? Because this blood that runs to your face is a tikkun, fixes the blood that was inside your heart that you messed up with that blood, which is what? The blood of the left side, which is the Nefesh Bahamis that rests in it, like we just said. Now, so we see Lamaiso, what's the cause of hunger, thirst, tiredness, and everything? Nefesh Bahamis. Because the Nefesh Bahamis, even though it's a spiritual thing, but we just said that it's able to bring, the body's able to take it down. At the end of the day, what's causing thirst, and what's causing all these lackings? They're lackings, right? And Shemaim, they're not sitting and drinking there. They're not eating. They're not sleeping. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he went for 40 days, he didn't do anything. He was in sole control. Why? Because the Nefesh Bahamis is what causes these things. A tzaddik gets to such a level where he's mevatel the Nefesh Bahamis completely, so he has the Nefesh Alikus just can live on godliness. What causes, why does certain tzaddikim have to eat still? Because it's not that they're not tzaddikim, but they were mevatel completely the Nefesh Bahamis. It's still inside them. Moshe Rabbeinu went to such a high level that he only had godliness in him. So we see two things really that the Nefesh Bahamis does. One is that it gives life, and it causes all the needs, which is what? Ego needs. I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to drink, I need to do this, I need to go, I. And what is that? Klipa. What's klipa? I, anochi, ego, I. In Hebrew, to say ego, anochi, anochiut. What is that, anochi? I. Everything is I. There's once a tzaddik who said, I want to see somebody for an hour, not say the word I. Who could think 5 minutes out saying, I thought, instead of saying, we thought, even if there's nobody else in the room. Because that is we're so with the Nefesh of Bahamas that's inside of us. Okay, so we have to work on it. Now, the Maisa is like this. This is something that's very, 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 very famous in Sefer Chasidus. So I've learned to Kutumaran. It's brought here many times. The Hatanya it's brought, and in obviously again Rabbi Chaim Vital speaks in length. We know the Rambam, the Zohar, and the Medrash Rabbah, in many places I found, says that the world was created with four things: fire, which is Eish, wind is Ruach, right? Offer, dust, and mayim, water. We know that every single thing, again, this is important, every single thing that's in the physical world has a chain reaction, has its root in the spiritual world. So obviously there's four features in the spiritual world that are these, that when they're mishtalshel, when they manifest in the physical world, it's these four things. Now, these four things are the root of all taivas. How? Zok Rabbi Chaim Vital like this. Rav Nachman talks about this in a few places in Likutei Moharan, and the Tanya speaks about it in depth also. Like this. Zok the Heilige Tzadikim like this. Somebody who has gaiva and kas, that comes from fire. Why fire? Kas we know is like fire, it's heat, you get heated up. And why gaiva? So here I had two pshatim why. One is brought down in Tanya. He says just like a flame goes up, a person also, when he has gaiva, he brings himself up. He thinks that he's bigger than everybody. There's another pshat that really because gaiva and kas are the same thing. Because of who is the person that gets angry? The person who has gaiva. He thinks that comes to him. A person who doesn't have gaiva, he's never angry because whatever Hashem gives him, he's happy. What is he angry with? Who am I? Who am I? He doesn't have an I. It's the same point. That's the point. That's why we have. That's where it comes from. That's where the kas and gaiva comes from. Where does taivas come from? Pleasures. Where I want pleasures, eating, drinking, women, draw all the garbage. It comes from water. Why water? Mayim. We don't mean the physicality of the water. We mean in the Neshamah, which we said is the ruchni, the spiritual feature. Why water? What does water do? Water gives life to everything. When a person eats a fruit, why is it sweet? Only because the water gave life to the tree. Water is what gives life to taivas. That's taivas. Now, what about atzlus and kvedus? Person is lazy, sad. Where does that come from? That's offer. Why? It's heaviness. Offer is dirt. It's heavy, but has nothing to it. It doesn't move. A person's sad and depressed. What does he do? He's heavy and he sits in bed and he doesn't do anything. That is offer. The last one is person who makes fun of people and things like that. That is what? That's ruach. He has nothing. Why do people make fun of other people? Why do people put other people down? Simple. Because what? They know that they have that issue and it makes them feel better that somebody else, right? What does it say? Right? Misery, what's the word, right? When somebody's in misery, he needs a best friend that's also, right? Misery is his best friend, right? Why is misery a person's best friend? Because most of the time, most people are in misery. So they have a bunch of friends together. So they hang out all day. So you get to, you know what I mean? Point is, that where does this come from? That comes from the ruach. Why ruach? Because wind has nothing to it. It's emptiness. It's empty. It's like a person who makes fun of people. He's an empty person. Shallow. It's really means shallow. Shitchi. Shallow. Now, like this. So we see, Lamaiso, this is mamish like we said before. What did I say before? I said before that the Yetzer Hara is not something separate from the Nefesh. You see here, mamish, that the features that in this Nefesh is what causes the person to do bad. It's no Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara, two malachim. It's the two nefashis that are in the person. Today we're spending time about the Nefesh of the animal soul. So what is causing it? The four physicalities that the world is based on, which is in the spirituality, four features in this soul, that's what's causing all these bad things in taivas. That is the Yetzer Hara. And that is the battle, like we said, over. Now, Maiso, what's interesting is, this is something it's incredible. Maiso, what's interesting is that even by Yidden, where do the good midas come from? Yid wants to help somebody. He wants to speak kindly. He wants to help an older person, elderly people. He wants to anything. People, where does that come from? That does not come from the Neshamah likus. It also comes. The chiddush by Yid is that even in his animal soul, the midas tavis also come from there. Why do the Midas Tavis also come from there? How's it possible? I'll prove it to you. The answer is like this. The Gemara says, it's a famous Gemara in Yevomis on Ayin Testament Aleph. The Gemara says there's 3 simonim that a person's a yid. They're embarrassed. They're baishanim. That means they're shy. Exactly, not about shy. They have rachmanut. They have pity on people, and they do gmilat chasadim. So what does that mean? The Gemara is saying. The Gemara is saying a fascinating thing that in a Jew, in his nature, the nature of a Jew, he doesn't have to build on it. The nature, the features that are featured in a Jew is these things. That means it's in his nature. If these things came from the Nefesh Elikus, and not from the Nefesh of Bahamas, the animal soul, we know that everything that in Kedusha doesn't come natural. You have to fight for it, right? That's why a person all of a sudden wants to close his eyes and he wants to watch his eyes. The first 20 years, he goes crazy. Why? Because in order to gain something for the Nefesh Elikus, which is the highest level, you have to fight for it. The fact that the Gemara is saying, the fact that we see in ourselves, that anybody ever ask, why do you want to do good? What's the reason? Okay, so atheists want to say because, right, to continue social, right, they want to keep the world going. Okay. Why is that? Because why do we have a good, what's the conscience? Whoever gave us a conscience to say this is good and this is bad? The answer is it's in our nature. It's part of our Neshamah, Hashem. Why? Because Hashem, what does it say? Hashem created us in His image. We know that God has this nature. We see how He deals with us. What does He want to do? He gives, He's good. So we know that when God is perfect. So anything God does, that means that's what's best. So I have to do that same thing. But I have it already in me. How's that possible? I never worked and I'm born with those things. I know at 5 years old, I don't kick my friend. Why not? Who says? This is one of the biggest questions, the moral question on all the atheists. They don't have that. How do they answer where do morals come from? So they're kind of stuck with it. But according to us, we know where morals come from because it's the soul. But the chiddush over here is that it's not coming from the nefesh and Neshamah likus. So of course that's tremendous good. But even the lower soul by a Jew, we also have godliness. That what? A little godliness that we have the midas tavis from there. The question is very simple. The whole shiur we're talking about how it's the klipa and it's dark and there's no or and there's everything and this and that and klipa and we're already who knows what. We're thinking we're klipas already, Everybody in Hebrew, a lot of people, ya klipa, One of the worst sayings, but it became a saying. The point is, it's a beautiful question. How's it possible? How could good come from this? The answer is, now we have to go into something that's a very famous kabbalistic aspect. Rabbi Chaim Vital speaks about the Arizal. The Zohar talks about it. And I mentioned this in a different time, in a different shiur. The Navi Yecheskel, when he had this story, the Meiser Makava, where he saw God's chariot, it doesn't mean a chariot, but it means all these huge hasagas and lofty visions of God. It says that he saw 4 klipot. He saw 4 klipot. The first 3 klipot was called Anan, the cloud. The second one was called Eish Mitklachat, which is fire. That's why showers, right? Hot shower in Hebrew. Litkalech is the shower. It comes from that word. And the third one is what? The third one is ruach. Ruach sara, bidyuk. Then there was a 4th klipa. The 4th klipa is something called klipa noga. Now what's klipa noga? Why is it called noga? Noga is a lashon of, first of all, there's 2 meanings. You could say noga sometimes is lashon of like nogea, that it's touching, it borderlines good and bad. And the other thing is noga, the Mukubalam says also, is a lashon of or, of light. It's a light klipa, meaning it has light to klipa. Why? So let's explain. The first of the klipot are the klipot on the lower madrega, on the lower level, that have no good in it, like we said. What do you mean we have no good? We said it means that it's completely covered. It's like in galut. All the good that's in it is exiled. It's only, why? Because we said the ego. That's the first klipot. The 3 klipot, which is what? Fire, right? Wind, ruach, and anan, the cloud. Those are of the goyim. The goyim, their Nefesh Bahamas, well, they don't have Nefesh Elikus because they only have one soul. And even the one soul that they have comes from the lower down, the klipas, they have no good in it. A yid, though, even that he has a Nefesh Elikus, which is huge, but even the Nefesh Bahamas is from the klipa noiga. What's klipa noiga? Klipa noiga is this, it's between the good and the bad. What does it mean between the good and the bad? What does that mean? That's where the free will comes in, the choice. Choice, do I go, I'll give you an example. Most of our lives, we deal with this klipa noiga. Why? Most of our lives, we're busy with eating, drinking, sleeping. Eating, drinking, sleeping. It doesn't say in the Torah it's wrong. But the fact that you do it and you're doing it for your own pleasure, that's an avera. That's wrong. That means you took it to the bad. But if somebody eats and he does it because he needs koich to learn, or he sleeps because he wants to get up so he can be a powerhouse to go give shiurim, or to learn, or to daven, then he took it to the good. What is this klipa noiga? Where's the source of it? Zokt Arizal and Rabbi Chaim Vital in Eitz Chaim, that is the sort of Eitz Hadas. When Adam Arishan ate in the Eitz Hadas, what was the Eitz Hadas? He had to stay away from the Eitz Hadas one day. The Eitz Hadas was something that was not completely bad, because if the opposite, if he would have not eaten the Eitz Hadas would have been the cause that he would have gotten all the das, he would have came to such a level that we'd go straight into Olam Haba. There would never been any of these things, no shvi, no nothing. Where do we see, what's the Eitz Hadas? Eitz Hadas is called Eitz Hadas Toiv Vira. But Adam Rishon had a choice. Do I pick the bad? Do I delve into it? And now what the whole sin of Eitz Hadas Tevera, you could give 20 shiurim on all the depth. Obviously it wasn't a tree, it was a spiritual tree. Even though the Gemara says different fruits, it means much deeper. But the point over here is that the klipa noiga comes from this tree. So we see that even a yid who has the lower soul, for sure the higher soul is completely good, but even the lower soul is not completely bad. It's in between. It depends on the Jew to take it to the good or the bad. We asked the question before, we said, according to this, also the Goyim have Ilam Haba if they do good. How? How do they have Ilam Haba? These Chasidei Umas HaOlam, the special Goyim that do good, they come from also the Klipa Noiga. There's certain Goyim that have a root of their Neshamah, the root of their Neshamah is in Klipa Noiga, and therefore they're able to. They can't get to the level of a Jew because they don't have the additional soul, which next week we'll speak about, but they could come to the level of getting into Ilam Haba because the Nefesh of Bahamas, they don't have from the lower down Klipas, they have from the higher Klipa of Klipa Noiga. If you remember we spoke, that Rashbi says in the Zohar, that there's this place across the world, that red-skinned people over there, they try to bring down the iris, and what? They're mamish in the sholosh klippas, what? They're from the lower klippas, because they want to use it completely for their own thing, and it's all for the bad. Who are the red side, on the other side of the world? We're talking about the Indians. Who are the Indians? One of the chiefs, I've looked it up, one of them was called fire, one of them was called cloud, one of them was called spirit. Ruach, spirit, wind, spirit. Because these Indians are ones from the sholosh tachtonot. That's why I said that people going to nightclubs today, it was the same thing as then going to dance ceremonies. They're all trying to get down, subconsciously they are, because that's where the pleasure is, but for their own selves. A Yid has the choice. So according to what we're saying now, the Yetzirah and Yetzer Tov, we said before the Yetzirah and Yetzer Tov is between the Neshamah Likus, that's Yetzer Tov, that has the feature Yetzer Tov, and Nefesh Bahamas, the animal soul has the Yetzirah. Now we're saying no, that even in the Nefesh Bahamas, the animal soul, there's a Yetzirah and Yetzer Tov, because it comes in Klipa Noiga. So really the battle of Yetzirah and Yetzer Tov already starts in the animal soul, it's herself. Meaning that I have a choice. Do I go after the bad midot in the klipa noga? Right? Animal soul, which tells me go eat and go do this, go do that. Or do I take it to the good and say, I'm going to eat, but Hashem, I think about you when I eat. I'm doing this because you made it that I have to eat. Okay. But that's the only reason why I'm doing it is because you made it this way, but I'm not living for this. I'm living, like tzaddikim say, they eat so they can make a bracha. Not make a bracha, they can eat. The other way around. That is the point. The question is, like this. So technically, I just want to say, so right now we see from the animal soul, there's three things in the animal soul. One is that it gives the body life, like we said, goes into the blood, and we explained the whole thing. Not just also has bad midot, like we thought first, which is completely Yetzirah, but in the Nefesh Bahamas, there's also a third thing, a midas toivas. It has Yetzirah and Yetzer Tov in it. Features of Yetzirah and Yetzer Tov. Because you say Yetzer Tov, Yetzirah is not that, it's the features of going. And Nefesh Alikus, of course, helps you even more when you tap into that. But that's not right now. The question is, push the question. Look in the world, you see non-Jews doing good. You see non-Jewish people, you see on YouTube, homeless experiments, all these types of experiments, all these things you see, they're giving out thousands of dollars. So the Baal Hatanya. Baal Hatanya says, where's that coming from? Not from a good place. It's for either they want to be haughtiness. The non-Jewish people, not the Chassidim Musalam, the non-Jewish people who are from the Chassidim Musalam, meaning we said were from Klipa Noiga, so they do have good features. Talking about the ones who are from the bottom, the 2-3 Klipas, they have no good, so where do they start doing good from? The answer is because Zokta Baal Hatanya, because they do it for their own selves. So there's no good. A Yid, when he does good, he's not doing it for his own. He really feels the other person. Many times, going when they do it, why do they want to help somebody? Because they don't want to feel bad seeing that person. You understand? It's not just they don't, for that person, they're afraid to feel bad because they just don't want to feel bad because it's not good for their life. That's what he says, one thing. And the other thing is, it's also for holiness. Where do we have that? We have the Gemara by Rashbi. It says the Romans built the roads, and there was a machlekes over there. And the Gemara says, a few shitas, one said, look how great the roads are, look how much they do for us. Rav Yossi kept quiet. So that one, what happened was, no good. Rabbi Yossi kept quiet, he went into exile, and Rabbi Chaim Vital said, no. They didn't do it for us. They did it for themselves so they could get money. There's always something lurking behind. So the Baal Hatanya is saying that there's never such a thing as doing good by goyim unless they're from Chassidus Umas Ha'olam, which, what is Chassidus Umas Ha'olam is a lot of it's not so simple. But the point is, somebody at least who keeps Sham Mitzvah Nenoach, that's Chassidus Umas Ha'olam, and he's makbid on it. But somebody who is not makbid, but he likes to do good, no, that's coming from his own self-glory. What's interesting is, so we see that the difference between a guy, a non-Jew and a Jew is not just in the Neshamah Likus, the second Neshamah that we started off on the Chaim Vital. It's in the animal soul itself that the Yid comes Klippa Noiga, and the non-Jew comes from the three Klippas, from the three lower Klippas. There's an amazing story, and with this will end. The Baal Hatanya one time was in Russia, and they brought him into jail. And they started asking all these things, because he was writing about all that they looked at his sefer in Tanya. And they started asking question after question after question. And Baal Hatanya kept on answering every question. Exactly. And they were stunned. They had nothing to answer. Baal Hatanya, the last question they asked was, what's this thing in the kabbalists, right? That we have no good and we do it only for our own pleasure and all that. So Baal Hatanya, and the Baal Hatanya also wrote this in Tanya. So Baal Hatanya is sitting there and he's like, what is he going to do? So Baal Hatanya just stared at them and he didn't answer. Later on, they bring down, I think, from the Middle Rebbe, his son, or the Rashab, from the Rabbi Shalom Ber, his grandson. What was the pshat? He said over why I didn't say anything. I didn't have to, because I had the answers to all these other questions. They understood that when I kept quiet is that I don't want to even embarrass you even more, guys. Because I would have the answers, and I have all the best answers, but let's just keep it where you're not that embarrassed. So they let him go. So that's Baal Hatanya spot on, as you would say. The point is, B'ezrat Hashem, so really our battle, we have to understand, is not just to tap into the godly soul. It's actually, most of our battle in this life is to tap into our Nefesh of Bahamas. And where do we take the Klippa Noiga, like Eitzadas, to the good side or to the bad? So B'ezrat Hashem, I wanted to say one last thing. I just forgot, I remembered. We said that from water is pleasure. Water is the root of all taivas, which is why you'll see that many Rebbes and many kabbalists, they don't drink plain water ever. They only drink water that's mixed with something. They'll never touch regular water from a bottle, because unless it has to have sweetened something, not plain water, because this water represents taivas. So they don't want to drink something that's plain water, which is why a lot of them will drink something that's more sweetened, or there's a mix, or something, they put something in it just to take out that it's completely water. So B'ezrat Hashem, we should be zoich to always be doicha the Yetzer Hara, which is the features in the animal soul from the bad side, from the ego, and we should create a good kli. And that kli should come through where I don't say I anymore, or you say I, but you don't think you're I only. And through that, we should bring the Gula Shalem Meher V'Yimenu. Amen.